An isolated thunderstorm that dropped an incredible amount of water right in the river that I find my largest gold nuggets. A man from a tiny town in Tasmania just pulled over 70 g of pure alluvial gold from a single river worth more than $15,000 at today's prices using nothing but a snorkel, a plastic bottle, and a stick. No machinery, no mining lease, no crew. Just one man chest deep in freezing water sucking gold nuggets out of bedrock cracks that have not been touched by another human being in over 100 years. We're gold snipers and adventurers from the island of Tasmania. We're currently on day 3 of a 5-day adventure revisiting an old gold field that has been abandoned from society for over 150 years. His name is Levi Triffitt. And that 70 g haul was not even his biggest find. After 6 years of returning to the same remote Tasmanian river, Levi finally struck what he calls the mother lode. A deposit so rich it changed everything he thought he knew about gold prospecting on this island. But the reason he was out there in the first place, alone, miles from anyone, season after season, is a story that cuts much deeper than gold. Because Levi was not just prospecting, he was trying to survive the worst loss of his life, the death of his brother. This is the full story of the Tassie Boys and their massive gold discovery. We're back into the wild rivers of Tasmania's temperate rainforests on an adventure of a lifetime. I'll be spending 3 days along the banks of a remote river, camped up, looking for gold. My goal for this trip is to return to a super-rich gold deposit of fine gold for 2 days. Where it all began. Before there was gold, there were motorbikes. Levi Triffitt and his brother Jerem grew up in Delrain, a small town in northern Tasmania, and together they started the Tassie Boys as an extreme sports group, filming daredevil trail bike stunts in the Tasmanian bush and uploading them to YouTube. The channel grew fast. Then in 2012, while riding through remote bushland near the Great Western Tears, the brothers stumbled upon a skull by a creek. Lots of people think dog, Jarm told reporters at the time. But when you actually get on Google and compare it to your normal dogs that are in Tasmania, the closest thing we could find it to was an American timber wolf, which I don't believe we have here. The skull was rushed to the Queen Victoria Museum and Art Gallery in Lorist. The media went wild. Just found a male and a female thigh loin head side by side. Hold the other one up. We're not really sure what they are. Side by side on the bank of this creek, which we're not going to don't break it. Did you just knock his big tooth out? No. You think it might be a sure. Could this be proof the Tasmanian tiger still existed? Scientists examined it and identified it as a dog skull. But the attention launched the Tassie Boys into national headlines, and the channel kept growing, eventually reaching millions of views. What drove both brothers went deeper than stunts. Their younger brother, Coram, has severe autism requiring full-time care. Their mother, Deidre, fought for years to establish proper autism services in Tasmania, eventually relocating the entire family to Canada so Coram could attend a specialized school, then lobbying the Tasmanian government until they committed $225,000 to create Giant Steps Tasmania in 1995. The Tassie Boys performed stunts to raise awareness for autism in 2013. From the beginning, adventure and purpose were inseparable for this family. Somewhere along the way, Levi's interest shifted from stunts to what was hiding beneath his feet. Tasmania sits on some of the richest alluvial gold deposits in Australia. And most people have no idea. Gold was first discovered on the island in the 18th century with major production from areas like Beaconsfield, Mathanina, and the remote Western Rivers. The northeast alone recorded over 288 kilograms of alluvial gold production from the Math-Mangana area during the colonial era. But the terrain is savage. Dense temperate rainforest, rivers that drop to near freezing temperatures even in summer, and bush so thick that one of the major problems in finding gold in Tasmania has always been the sheer difficulty of simply getting to the rivers in the first place. Dense vegetation makes metal detecting almost useless in many areas. Unlike mainland Australia, where open ground gives prospectors room to swing a detector. When the accessible gold ran out in the early 20th century, most miners simply packed up and left. Entire gold fields were abandoned and swallowed by wilderness. Rivers that had produced ounces of gold sat untouched for 100 years or more, slowly accumulating new deposits with every flood. Cycle. Levi started ficking for gemstones first, exploring rivers and creeks close to home. But it did not take long before gold took over completely. He studied old geological surveys published by Mineral Resources Tasmania, pored over mining history records, and taught himself a technique called sniping. Sniping is about as raw as gold prospecting gets. You put on a wetsuit, a mask, and a snorkel. Wade into a river, stick your face underwater, and use a small plastic snuffer bottle and a crevicing tool to suck gold out of the cracks and natural traps in the bedrock. There is no machinery involved. No pumps, no dredges, no SLES boxes. Just your eyes, your hands, and your ability to read the river. And for those that don't know what sniping is, it's basically jumping in the river with a snorkel and a mask and your wetsuit, because in Tassie it's freezing cold and you're just fanning all the gravels and clearing the gravels off, and down underneath on the bedrock is where the gold sits. The first time Levi saw a piece of alluvial gold glowing underwater, he was done for. It was just really cool that I was finding it, and I was just going all winter. Levi later told the Examiner. I had frostbite and hypothermia and almost passed out from it. The obsession was total. He would prospect through the Tasmanian winter, staying in the water for hours at a time in conditions that would send most people running. In 2020, he rebranded the channel to Tassie Boys Prospecting, and the gold rush began. The brothers and the music breaking point. To understand why Levi prospects the way he does, pushing deeper into the bush, staying out, music, longer, taking risks that most people would never consider, you need to understand what happened in late 2020. Jerome Triffitt, Levi's brother, and the other half of the original Tassie Boys, took his own life after a long battle with mental health issues. The loss shattered Levi. He has been open about his own struggles with depression and anxiety, and losing the person he was closest to in the world forced him to find something that could keep him going. Prospecting became that lifeline. We had a different bond as brothers than most, Levi said in an interview with the Examiner. Most brothers fight, they don't get along. We were pretty good because we had to survive with our third brother that had autism, which was severe. We relied on each other a lot of the time. We had such an experience. It's been so different. But the memories, you just wouldn't change them for anything. He still talks about the Tassie Boys as we. He has said that when he is miles out along the river with the pack raft all alone, he carries his brothers in his mind. When I'm miles out along the river with the pack raft all alone, I carry my brothers in my mind. Levi has said, there's a lot of healing in it for me. I guess now that he's gone, I do feel him about. I know he's out there somewhere. Prospecting gave Levi a reason to keep moving forward. Prospecting is good for me all around because it's everything that I love, he told the Examiner. I've had depression and anxiety for years, and that's probably why I haven't done ordinary work over the years. For me, it's just been music, the thing that's really helped me. Every gold discovery that follows in this story carries that weight. There's an untouched oasis out there, and I've just hiked my equipment miles into this remote, unforgiving, but beautiful and enchanting world and found exactly where the gold and also the rare arsmiridium is hiding. Every trip into the bush is not just about what is in the river. It is about a man finding the only peace he knows in the most remote corners of an island at the bottom of the world. 6 years on one river, the mother lode. Now you know what drives him. So picture this. For 6 years, Levi keeps returning to the same river deep in Tasmania's wilderness. Season after season, trip after trip. He hikes in music, with his pack raft, paddles upstream, sets up a camp, and spends days submerged in water cold enough to give you hypothermia in 30 minutes. He finds gold enough to keep him coming back. But the big deposit, the one he can feel is there, stays just out of reach. Then on one trip, everything changes. Levi paddles his pack raft upstream. The forest pressing in from both sides. The only sound the rush of water over rock. He pulls on his mask, slides into the river, and the cold hits him like a wall. He starts working. A section of bedrock he has crevices before, jamming his tool into cracks, suctioning with his snuffer bottle. Then his hand stops. There is gold sitting in the crack. Not a speck, a nugget. He sucks it up and moves to the next crevice. More gold and the next more again. His snuffer bottle fills fast, too fast. He pulls out nugget after nugget. Chunky pieces of alluvial gold sitting in traps that seem to have no end. I've been gold prospecting on this river for over 6 years now. And just when I thought things were slowing down, I unearthed a record-breaking gold nugget. When he finally climbs out and tips his collection into the pan, the weight of it shocks him. This is not a good day. This is not even a great season. This is the mother lode. More gold than he has ever pulled from this river in a single session. After 6 years of obsessive searching, the river has finally given up its biggest secret. I thought I'd done a pretty good job of this spot when I left it, Levi said. But just goes to show if you keep continuing on and put the time in, there's more to be found. The video documenting this discovery became one of the most watched episodes on Tassie Boys prospecting, with the Motherlode series alone pulling nearly 3 million views in just 2 months. It was not just the gold that gripped people. It was the 6-year story behind it, the stubbornness, the loneliness, the refusal to quit on a river when every logical part of you says to move on. The discoveries that built a legend. The Motherlode was the breakthrough. But Levi's career is built on a series of discoveries that escalated in size and significance. Each one pushing deeper into ground that no modern prospector, and sometimes no prospector at all, had ever worked. The first was what nature handed him after a brutal summer storm. Heavy flash flooding hammered one of Levi's prospecting areas for days, turning the river into a churning brown torrent that ripped trees from the banks and hurled boulders downstream like marbles. I noticed there's been a massive flood since we were here last. A spot that I used to have to climb over a log jam that was all open. Hopefully, some gravels have been shifted and it might open up some fresh bedrock. When the waters finally drop, Levi makes his way back. He scrambles down the bank and the river he thought he knew is gone. The landscape looks like it has been hit by a bomb. Boulders the size of cars sit in places they have never been. Gravel bars have been stripped to bare rock. Fresh bedrock gleams in the sunlight where meters of sediment used to be. He pulls on his mask and drops into the current. The water is still murky, still angry, but within minutes he sees it. Gold scattered across cracks and shelves, music, that was sealed shut for potentially thousands of years, now ripped open by the force of the flood. By the time he cleans up, he has recovered nearly an ounce, roughly 27 G, worth approximately $6,000 at today's gold prices. One storm did the work of heavy mining equipment, stripping away centuries of overburden in a single night. And Levi was the first person there to capitalize. This is one of the fascinating realities of alluvial gold prospecting in Tasmania. The gold in these rivers has been concentrating in bedrock cracks and natural traps for thousands of years. Every flood event reshuffles the deck. Water strips sediment from one area and dumps it in another, rolling gold downstream until it gets caught in a crack, a pothole, or a false bedrock shelf. A single major storm can turn a spot that produced nothing for years into a gold-bearing bonanza overnight. And Levi, because he knows his rivers better than anyone, is always one of the first to get back in the water when the flood recedes. Then came the discovery that even Levi struggles to explain. He hiked deep into terrain so remote that there were no old SLES marks, no tailings piles, no evidence that any prospector in over 150 years of Tasmanian mining history had ever set foot there. What he found was not just gold. He also recovered osmiridium, a rare naturally occurring alloy of osmium and iridium with a deep connection to Tasmanian history. Osmiridium's 2 alloys, osmium and iridium. It's got a slight bit of platinum metals in it as well. It's very heavy. It's about a 3G heavier than gold itself. Osmiridium was first recognized, music, in the 1880s as an impurity in Western Tasmanian gold. Miners threw it away. The Royal Mint penalized people for gold contaminated with it. But by 1909, its price exploded. And by 1920, Tasmania had become the largest producer of osmiridium on the planet, with the Pieman River fields producing over 2,000 ounces in a single year worth more than 77,000. A second rush hit Adams Field in 1925, where over 1,000 mining permits were issued in 3 months. For Levi to find both gold and osmiridium in a creek with zero trace of prior music mining was a confirmation that Tasmania still has undiscovered mineral wealth hidden in its wilderness. But the discovery that Levi himself calls the greatest of his career came when he returned to a remote river where he had previously sniped approximately 70 G of gold worth over $15,000. Most prospectors would have been satisfied with that first haul and moved on to new ground. Not Levi. He went back, and what started with one record-sized nugget one of the largest individual pieces he had ever pulled from music, a Tasmanian river, turned into something much bigger. That nugget pointed him toward a richer deposit underneath. A concentration of gold that the first trip had only scratched the surface of. Over the following season of videos, the haul from that single location kept growing. Each trip back revealed more gold, more nuggets, more weight in the pan at cleanup. The deposit seemed to have no flaw. At current prices of roughly $228 Australian dollars per gram, the cumulative value of gold Levi pulled from this one stretch of river represents the kind of payday that professional mining operations spend millions trying to find. And here was one man with a bottle and a snorkel pulling it out by hand. Walking in the footsteps of old-timers. Not everything Levi finds in the bush glitters. Some of his most compelling episodes are about history, not gold, old miner trails from the 1800s. Abandoned workings overtaken by forest, and one expedition that became the most physically punishing thing he has ever done. Together with fellow Tasmanian prospector Rob Parsons and adventurer Hugh Calvert, Levi set out to find the lost burial site of John Stannard, a 19-year-old Huon piner who drowned in the Jane River in 1901. Stannard had been working the area with 3 mates since 1899, felling Huon pine trees. He slipped from a log and went under. His mates buried him on the riverbank and planted 3 Huon pine seedlings around the grave. In 1901, only 2 years later, one of these men, a young 19-year-old John Stannard, slipped and drowned while trying to free a log jam in the river. His mates were able to quickly retrieve his body, but they were unable to restore life. The last person to officially document that grave was journalist Michael Charland, who visited the Jane River in 1938 while searching for the Thyloin. After that, the area became known as the Forgotten Goldfields, and the jungle took everything back. The first attempt to find the grave nearly broke the team. The first trip, music, just wrecked us. Rob Parsons told the Examiner. We went so hard from sunrise to sunset. We all basically staggered out of there. I crawled most of the way. My right leg was ruined. My knee wouldn't bend. I couldn't lift it, so I was dragging it over stumps. They had walked 24 kilometers in a single day through some of the densest bush in Australia. They came back months later. This time, they used pack rafts to travel the rivers and save their legs. Calvert had to pull out on day 1 with injuries. Then Levi's raft burst mid-river, dumping him into the freezing current. The weather turned. Rain hammered down through the canopy. They were soaked, cold, exhausted, and seriously considering turning back, but they pushed on. Day 4. They have already searched everywhere they thought the grave could be. They are on their way out. Spirits crushed, packs heavy, legs wrecked. And then, half hidden under a thick blanket of moss, tree roots, and over a century of forest growth, they see it. The grave sits under a blanket of moss and tree roots. 3 Huon pines, now over 120 years old, still stand around it. When we got there and we did find it, Levi said there were still 3 Huons. They would be 120 years old, and the backplate of the headstone was still there, and part of one of the crosscut saw blades was sticking out of the ground. It's gone. The headstone gone, but the main piece is still there, and the crosscut saw is there. Dude, we did it. It was insane, Rob Parsons added, because we had already searched the whole area. We were on our way out. We had given up. They had rediscovered a piece of Tasmanian history that had been lost for nearly 90 years, hidden under the relentless growth of one of the most impenetrable forests on the continent. No GPS coordinates, no trail markers, just 3 determined men, 2 busted legs, a burst raft, and the kind of obsessive refusal to quit that defines everything. Levi does. It's the most beautiful place in some respects, Levi said, but it's very unforgiving because it's hard to navigate through. The man, the river, and what gold really means. Today, Tassie Boys prospecting is Levi Triffitt's full-time job. The channel has grown from those early motorbike stunt videos to a prospecting phenomenon with tens of thousands of subscribers, over 11 million total views, 51,000 followers on Instagram, and individual video series that pull millions of views in weeks. He runs a Patreon community where he shares prospecting techniques, gives away gold to subscribers, and teaches people how to navigate the Tasmanian bush. He sells merchandise through his own store. And under a quirk of Tasmanian law dating to 1995, technically none of the gold he finds belongs to him. A prospecting license does not grant ownership of minerals, meaning all his discoveries technically belong to the Crown, a rule unique to Tasmania that no other Australian state enforces. But the gold was never really the point. Levi has said that prospecting saved him, that the rivers and the wilderness gave him a place to grieve, a place to heal, and a reason to keep pushing when everything else fell apart. He has been open about struggling with depression and anxiety for years. He has admitted to pushing his body past safe limits, risking frostbite and hypothermia in pursuit of gold during Tasmanian winters. And through all of it, he has kept the camera rolling, sharing every triumph and every music setback with an audience that has grown to care about much more than what is sitting in the bottom of his pan. Somewhere right now, on a river that does not appear on most maps, in a stretch of Tasmanian wilderness, where the nearest road is a full day's hike away, there is a man in a wetsuit with his face underwater, scanning cracks in the bedrock for the glint of something ancient. He is alone. He has been alone for days. The forest around him has music, not changed in 1,000 years. The only sounds are the rush of the current and the occasional crack of a branch in the canopy above. And he is carrying his brothers with him. One in memory, music, one in spirit, the way he has on every trip since. The world changed in 2020. Levi Trivett